Trooper Grant Mercer had already decided the Range Rover didn't belong to the man driving it before he ever turned on his lights. The SUV was black, spotless, and moving exactly 2 miles under the speed limit on a wide stretch of Interstate 85 south of Petersburg, Virginia. Nothing about it should have drawn attention. Mercer followed anyway. Marcus Ellis noticed the grey state police cruiser in his mirror at 8:07 that morning. He checked his speed, 63 in a 65. His seatbelt was on, both hands rested at 10 and 2. He had not changed lanes in almost 4 miles. Still, the cruiser stayed 20 yards behind him. Marcus looked once at the navigation screen, 26 minutes to his destination. A man was waiting there who had spent 6 months trying to decide whether talking to the federal government would ruin his career or save it. Marcus had promised to arrive alone. No local police. No marked federal vehicle, no agents standing in a hallway. Just Marcus, a cup of bad coffee, and enough time to listen.
The blue lights came on. Marcus's jaw shifted, that figures.
He signaled immediately and moved onto the shoulder. The Range Rover stopped well beyond the white line. He lowered the driver's window halfway, placed the vehicle in park, and waited. Mercer took his time getting out. Marcus watched him through the mirror.
White male, late 30s, broad shoulders, campaign hat.
Dark sunglasses even though the morning was overcast. His right hand stayed near his holster as he approached. Marcus kept both hands on the steering wheel. Mercer stopped behind the driver's door instead of beside the window. License. Marcus turned his head slightly. Good morning, Trooper. License and registration. Sure. Marcus reached slowly toward the center console. Mercer's hand touched his pistol. Keep your hands where I can see them. Marcus stopped. My registration is in the console. I didn't tell you to reach. You asked for it. Mercer leaned closer. You always this argumentative? Marcus looked at him. We've been talking for maybe 10 seconds. Mercer held out his hand. License. Marcus removed his wallet with 2 fingers and passed over his Virginia driver's license. Mercer studied it longer than necessary. Marcus Ellis. That's right. Mercer looked at the Range Rover. This your vehicle? Yes, you sure? Marcus's eyes settled on him. The registration will answer that. Mercer didn't smile. You got a problem with questions?
No, then answer them, I am.
Traffic rushed past behind Mercer. The trooper looked through the interior. Laptop bag on the passenger floor. Coffee in the cup holder. Dark jacket folded over the rear seat. Nothing unusual. Where you headed? Marcus answered south. Mercer stared at him. That's funny, it wasn't meant to be. Where exact paused. That question mattered. Not because he had anything illegal in the vehicle. Because the meeting ahead was confidential. Is my destination related to the reason you stopped me? Mercer's posture changed. There it was. A small thing. But Marcus had interviewed enough people with power to recognize the moment a conversation stopped being routine and became personal. Mercer stepped closer to the glass. Step out. Marcus remained still. Why, I'm giving you a lawful order. You haven't told me what I was stopped for. You crossed the fog line. Marcus glanced toward the shoulder.
No, I didn't. Mercer gave a short laugh. You want to argue traffic law with me?
No, I want to know the basis for the stop. You just got it. Then write the citation. Mercer stared at him. Marcus saw his own reflection in the trooper's sunglasses. Step out of the vehicle. Marcus lowered his voice.
Trooper, I'm not refusing to cooperate. I'm asking whether you're ordering me out because of an alleged lane violation.
Mercer leaned down until his face was near the opening. I don't like your attitude. That isn't a traffic offense. Mercer straightened. Marcus watched his right hand move away from his holster. For half a second, he thought the trooper was backing off. Instead, Mercer pulled a steel expandable baton from his belt.
Marcus's expression changed. Don't do that. Last chance.
My hands are visible. Step out. Unlock the door and I'll step out. It is unlocked? No, it isn't. Mercer reached for the handle. Locked. Marcus had automatically locked the doors when he left home. Mercer slapped the roof. Unlock it. Marcus moved his right hand slowly toward the door controls. Mercer jerked backward. Hands. Marcus stopped immediately. You just told me to unlock the door. I told you to step out. I can't step out through a locked door. The cars behind them kept moving. A tractor trailer passed close enough to shake the Range Rover. Mercer's face hardened. Marcus saw the baton come up. Trooper, The steel tip struck the glass. The first impact cracked the window, but did not break it. Marcus flinched back. "What the hell are you doing?" Mercer hit it again. This time the laminated glass burst inward. Marcus turned his face as fragments sprayed across his shoulder, lap, and center console. A thin piece cut the side of his neck. Mercer shoved the baton through the opening. "Step out, thug!" Marcus froze, not because he hadn't heard him. Because he had. For half a second, even Mercer seemed to understand what he had said. Then his expression locked back into place. Marcus raised both hands. "My hands are up. Open the door. You broke the controls." "Open it!" Marcus reached carefully for the interior handle. Mercer grabbed the frame and yanked the door outward. Glass fell onto the pavement. Out. Marcus turned side. Before both feet reached the shoulder, Mercer seized the back of his shirt and pulled. Marcus stumbled. His right knee struck pavement. "Stop pulling me." "Hands behind your back. I'm not resisting. Behind your back." Marcus placed both hands behind him. Mercer drove him chest first against the rear door. The cuffs snapped shut, too tight. Marcus exhaled through his nose. "Badge number." Mercer grabbed his shoulder and turned him. "What? Your badge number?" Mercer's face came close. "You think you're in charge here?" "No." Marcus looked directly at him. "But you're creating a record." That line landed. Mercer's grip tightened. "What did you say? You heard me." Mercer pushed him toward the front fender. "Spread your feet." Marcus complied. The trooper searched his waistband, jacket pockets, and ankles. "Nothing, you armed?" Marcus said. "There is a secured firearm in the vehicle." Mercer stopped. "Where?" Marcus looked back at him. "You're searching me after breaking my window, and now you want me to help you search the vehicle?" Mercer spun him around. "You just admitted there's a gun."
I told you there is a secured firearm where?
Marcus said nothing. Mercer stared at him for 2 seconds. Then he walked toward the Range Rover. Marcus's voice sharpened.
I do not consent to a vehicle search.
Mercer opened the rear passenger door. "Noted, you don't have probable cause." Mercer leaned inside. Marcus raised his voice. "Trooper Mercer." The name was printed on the trooper's chest. Mercer turned. For the first time, he looked slightly surprised that Marcus had used it. Marcus continued, "You stopped me for a fog line violation." Mercer looked back into the vehicle. "You became suspicious." "No, you became nervous. No, you refused commands." "I followed every command that didn't contradict the one before it." Mercer pulled Marcus's laptop bag from the passenger floor. Marcus's voice dropped. "Do not open that." Mercer looked at him.
Why? Because it contains privileged government material.
Mercer smiled. There was no humor in it, government material. "Yes, what are you, some kind of contractor?" Marcus said nothing. Mercer unzipped the bag. Inside were a laptop, a legal pad, a sealed manila folder, and a small hard-sided case. Mercer removed the case, combination lock. Marcus watched him. "Leave it closed. What's in it?" "Property you are not authorized to access." Mercer laughed. Still giving orders. A second cruiser approached from behind. Marcus turned his head. Good, another officer meant another witness. The cruiser parked 15 yards back. A woman stepped out. Early 30s, Latina, state police uniform. Her hand rested near her holster as she approached. Mercer waved her over. "Ruiz. Got a problem, child?" Trooper Elena Ruiz looked first at Marcus, then at the broken window, then at the glass scattered across the shoulder. "What happened?" Mercer answered too quickly. He locked himself in, reached around, refused to exit. Marcus said, "My hands were on the steering wheel when he broke the window." Mercer pointed at him. "Don't talk." Ruiz looked at Marcus's wrists. The cuffs had already left deep red marks. "He bleeding?" Glass. Ruiz stepped closer. "You need EMS?" Marcus said, "I need these cuffs loosened." Mercer cut in.
He's fine. Ruiz looked at Mercer.
Then back at Marcus, I asked him. Marcus held her gaze. "My neck is cut. My hands are going numb." Ruiz reached toward the cuffs. Mercer stopped her. "Leave them." Her hand paused. That was the first relationship shift Marcus noticed. Not loyalty, not yet, but discomfort. Ruiz looked at the shattered driver window again. What was the stop lane violation? Her eyes moved to Mercer. And that became this? Mercer's jaw tightened. He escalated it. Marcus almost smiled. Ruiz noticed. "What?" Marcus said nothing. Mercer held up the locked hard case. "He admits there's a gun in here somewhere." Marcus corrected him.
I said there is a secured firearm in the vehicle.
Same thing, no. Mercer turned to Ruiz. Search the back. She didn't move. You have consent? Mercer's face changed. Marcus watched that carefully. Ruiz had asked the right question. Mercer said probable cause. For what? Possible weapons violation. Marcus spoke. There is no weapons violation. Mercer snapped around. You don't get to decide that, no. Virginia law does. Ruiz looked at Marcus. You a lawyer? Mercer scoffed. Of course not. Marcus looked at Ruiz instead. Ask him what specific fact gave him probable cause before he opened the rear door. Mercer stepped between them. Stop coaching my trooper? Ruiz's expression tightened. I'm not your trooper. Mercer stared at her. She immediately softened her tone. I'm asking because if we search, it needs to be clean. For a second, Mercer looked like he might argue. Then he pointed toward the front seat. He made furtive movements, Marcus said. I reached for the registration after you requested it. You kept reaching. No. You reached under the console. No, Mercer stepped closer. You calling me a liar? Marcus looked at the body camera clipped to Mercer's chest. Its status light was dark. Then he looked at Ruiz's. A small green indicator blinked. Marcus stored that away. No. He looked back at Mercer. I'm saying your camera will answer it. Mercer glanced down very fast, Ruiz noticed. So did Marcus. Mercer reached for his body cam. Battery died, Ruiz said. Already? It didn't charge right. Marcus's eyes stayed on him. That's unfortunate. Mercer walked back to the Range Rover. Ruiz remained beside Marcus. Quietly, she said, What do you do? Marcus looked at her. Why? You don't sound surprised enough. About what? Any of this. Marcus flexed his fingers against the cuffs. I'm very surprised. That's not what I mean. Mercer opened the center console. Marcus's expression changed. Trooper Mercer ignored him. Do not remove anything from that compartment. Mercer pulled out a pair of sunglasses. A phone charger, a small flashlight, then a black leather credential wallet fell sideways from beneath a stack of receipts.
Marcus closed his eyes for 1 second, not fear. Calculation.
Ruiz saw it. What is that? Mercer picked it up. Marcus answered before he could open it. Leave it where it is. Mercer turned toward him. You suddenly nervous?
No, you look nervous. I'm concerned about how many mistakes you're making in a row.
Mercer opened the credential wallet. The gold badge caught the flat morning light.
FBI, for the first time since the stop began, Grant Mercer had no response ready.
His eyes moved from the badge to Marcus, then to the identification card. Then back to the badge. Ruiz took 1 step closer. Is that real? Mercer didn't answer. Marcus watched his face. This was the moment most people imagined would end everything. The badge, the federal seal, the photograph, the words special agent. Authority recognizing authority. But Marcus had learned a long time ago that a person who had already committed to a bad decision did not always stop when presented with a way out. Sometimes the way out felt like humiliation. Mercer looked at the ID again. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Marcus said nothing. Ruiz looked at him. You're FBI, Marcus answered. Yes. Mercer snapped the credential wallet shut. Maybe. Ruiz frowned. What? Mercer walked toward Marcus. People buy fake credentials online every day. Marcus stared at him. The serial number can be verified. Mercer shoved the wallet into his own shirt pocket. Ruiz noticed. Marcus noticed. Do not put my credentials in your pocket. Mercer's face hardened. They're evidence now. Evidence of what? Impersonating a federal officer. Ruiz looked at him. Grant, stay out of it. You just found a badge with his photo. A good fake has a photo, Marcus said. Call the FBI Richmond field office. Mercer ignored him. Use a number, you locate yourself. Nothing, ask for the duty supervisor. Mercer turned to Ruiz. Check the vehicle. She didn't move. Did you hear me? Yes, then search it. Ruiz looked at Marcus, then at the Range Rover. Then at Mercer. I think we should verify him first. Mercer's voice went flat. I gave you an order, and I'm telling you that if he's a federal agent... If Ruiz stopped, Mercer stepped closer. He could be moving drugs with fake credentials. Marcus laughed once. Mercer turned. What's funny? Marcus's face went still again. You. Mercer walked toward him. Ruiz stepped between them just enough to force Mercer to slow down. Marcus continued. You stopped me for touching a fog line. Yes. Then it became furtive movement. You reached.
Then it became a weapons investigation. You admitted there was a gun.
Now it's federal impersonation. Mercer said nothing. Marcus held his eyes. You're changing the reason every time the last one stops working. Mercer reached out and grabbed Marcus by the front of his shirt. Ruiz spoke sharply, Grant. Mercer released him. Marcus looked down at the wrinkled fabric. Then back up. That was also recorded. Mercer's eyes moved toward Ruiz's body cam. Ruiz took a small step back. Mercer said, turn that off. Her face changed. What? Sensitive credential investigation. Marcus watched her. This was not about him anymore. Not completely. Ruiz touched the camera but did not deactivate it. I don't think policy requires that. Mercer's voice lowered. I'm senior on scene. That's not the same thing. For 3 seconds, nobody spoke. Traffic filled the silence. Mercer turned away. Fine. He walked to his cruiser. Marcus watched him reach inside through the open driver's door. Not for the radio, for his phone. A personal phone. Mercer unlocked it, read something, and typed quickly. Marcus looked at Ruiz. Did dispatch send him anything about my vehicle before the stop? She frowned. I just got here. Can you check? Mercer looked over. Ruiz, she turned. Go run the plate. Ruiz walked toward her cruiser. Marcus watched Mercer. You already ran it? Mercer said nothing. Before you stopped me? Nothing. Marcus looked at the computer mounted inside Mercer's cruiser. The screen showed an idle home page, no traffic return window. No active query. Interesting. Ruiz returned to her cruiser and typed. Mercer walked back toward Marcus. You carrying a service weapon? Marcus said nothing. You already admitted it. I told you it was secured. Where? Marcus looked toward the locked hard-sided case. Mercer followed his eyes. He grabbed it. Ruiz called from her cruiser. Vehicle comes back clean. Mercer stopped. Ruiz continued. Registered to Marcus David Ellis, Richmond address. Marcus watched Mercer. The trooper stared at the case in his hands. Ruiz added no stolen hit, no wants attached to the plate. Mercer walked toward her. Run the license, I did. Valid. Mercer lowered his voice. Marcus could not hear the next sentence. Ruiz looked toward him, then back at Mercer. Marcus didn't need the words. He knew the pattern. One fact had failed. Now Mercer needed another. Ruiz stepped out of the cruiser. I'm calling a supervisor. Mercer said no. Her eyebrows rose. No, I'm handling it.
You have a possible federal credential. I have suspected fake credentials.
And a clean vehicle. Mercer pointed toward Marcus. And a combative detainee. Marcus said, standing here in handcuffs. Shut up. Ruiz looked at him, then at Mercer's supervisor. Mercer's face flushed. You really want to do this? Ruiz answered quietly. I want the scene documented correctly. Marcus watched the words hit harder than an accusation. Mercer stepped close to her. You don't know what you walked into. Ruiz didn't move, then explain it. Mercer looked toward Marcus. For just a moment, something in his face changed. Not confusion. Recognition. Marcus saw it. That bothered him more than anything else so far. Mercer knew something. Maybe not who Marcus was, but something about this stop had existed before the window shattered. Ruiz reached for her shoulder radio. Mercer grabbed her wrist. Don't, she stared at his hand. Marcus's voice changed. Take your hand off her. Mercer turned. Marcus continued. You're done making this worse. Mercer released. She immediately keyed the radio. Dispatch, Unit 412. Start a field supervisor to my location. Mercer stared at her. Ruiz added, and confirm federal credentials for Marcus David Ellis. Mercer stepped toward her. Cancel that. Ruiz kept transmitting. Date of birth, September 14th, 1983. Mercer reached for the radio. Ruiz moved away. Grant. Her voice carried a warning now. Marcus watched both of them. The scene had split. Mercer no longer controlled everyone on it. That mattered, dispatch answered. Copy, stand by. Mercer turned toward Marcus. You think that badge saves you? Marcus shook his head. No, that seemed to surprise him. Marcus continued. My rights existed before you opened it. Mercer stared. Marcus nodded toward the broken Range Rover window. That's the part you should be worried about. Mercer took 2 steps closer. You threatened me? No. I heard a threat. You heard what you needed. Mercer's eyes narrowed. Marcus's voice remained even. Same problem you've had since you turned your lights on. Ruiz looked at Marcus. There was something new in her expression. Recognition, but not of his job. Recognition of the possibility that the entire stop had been wrong from the first second. Dispatch crackled over her radio. Unit 412, Ruiz answered. Go ahead. Federal duty desk is confirming. Mercer moved toward the radio. Ruiz stepped back again. Dispatch continued. Marcus David Ellis is listed as an active special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The highway noise seemed to drop away. Ruiz looked at Marcus. Mercer did not. He stared at the asphalt. Dispatch added Richmond duty supervisor is requesting his current condition and asking why he is detained. Ruiz opened her mouth. Mercer spoke first. Tell them he assaulted me.
Marcus's expression changed. Ruiz turned slowly.
What? Mercer looked at her. He assaulted me during extraction. You said he refused to exit. He did. That's not assault. He struck my arm. Marcus said I never touched you. Mercer pointed at him. He's lying. Ruiz looked at Mercer's arms. No injury, no torn sleeve, nothing. Mercer saw her looking. He rubbed his left forearm right here. Marcus stared at him. Ruiz's voice dropped. I didn't see anything. You weren't here. No, she looked at her body cam. But I am now. Mercer stepped close enough that only she and Marcus could hear him clearly. You want to make detective someday? Ruiz went still. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. That sentence was not random. Mercer continued. Then learn when a scene needs one story. Ruiz stared at him. Marcus watched her face. There it was. The choice. Not his. Mercer turned toward his cruiser. Dispatch, Unit 318. A reply came. Go ahead. Mercer keyed his mic. Update. Detainees claiming federal status. He became aggressive after the stop, resisted removal, and struck me during the extraction. Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. Mercer continued. Requesting transport, evidence tow, and criminal investigation before any release. Ruiz looked at him in disbelief. Mercer lowered the radio. Then he turned toward Marcus. You wanted a record. Marcus met his eyes. Mercer gave the smallest smile. Now you've got one. Marcus looked past him at the shattered Range Rover window, at the glass on the shoulder, at Ruiz's still running body cam, and at Mercer's personal phone sticking halfway out of his pocket. Then he noticed something he had not seen before. A message was still visible on the screen. Only 4 words could be read from where he stood. Black Rover southbound confirm. Marcus stopped breathing for a beat. This had never been a random traffic stop. The field supervisor arrived 11 minutes later. By then Marcus's hands had gone from tingling to numb. Mercer had moved the Range Rover's locked hard case onto the hood of his cruiser and was trying combinations against the latch. Ruiz stood several feet away with her body camera still running. Nobody was talking to anyone unless they had to. The supervisor stepped out of an unmarked SUV, took in the shattered window, Marcus in cuffs and Mercer holding the black case. What happened? Mercer answered first. Traffic stop turned combative. He resisted extraction, struck my arm, then produced what looks like federal credentials. Marcus looked at Ruiz. She looked back. Neither reacted. The supervisor turned toward Marcus. You Marcus Ellis? Yes, you FBI? The bureau duty desk already confirmed that. The supervisor looked at Ruiz. She nodded. Dispatch confirmed active status. Mercer cut in. Doesn't mean he didn't assault me. Marcus spoke before the supervisor could answer. Ask him when he ran my plate. Mercer stared at him. The supervisor frowned. What? Marcus nodded toward Mercer's cruiser. Ask him when he first queried my registration. Why? Because he says this stop began with suspicious driving. Mercer snapped. It did. Marcus continued. He also had a message on his personal phone describing my vehicle before Trooper Ruiz ran the official registration. Mercer's face changed. The supervisor looked at him. What message? No idea what he's talking about.
Marcus didn't blink. Black Rover, southbound, confirmed.
Ruiz's eyes moved toward Mercer. The supervisor caught it. You saw that? Ruiz hesitated. I saw his phone out. That's not what I asked. She glanced at Marcus, then at Mercer. I didn't read the full message. Mercer stepped forward. Because there wasn't one. Marcus looked at the supervisor. The phone is in his right front pocket. Mercer laughed. You want to search me now? No. Marcus's voice stayed flat. I want the device preserved before the message disappears. Mercer's hand moved toward the pocket. Ruiz saw it. So did Marcus. The supervisor said nobody touches anything. Mercer's hands stopped. The supervisor looked at Marcus. If there's an assault allegation, I'm not resolving that on the shoulder.
Then don't. Marcus nodded toward Ruiz's chest. Preserve her body cam.
Then Mercer's preserve his, including system status. Mercer scoffed. I already told you, mine failed. Marcus continued. Preserve cruiser GPS, dispatch audio, mobile data terminal logs, and his personal phone. The supervisor's mouth tightened. You're giving me evidence instructions? I'm telling you what will be gone first if nobody does. Mercer stepped toward him. You keep talking like you're running my scene. Marcus looked at him. You stopped having a scene when you invented an assault. Mercer's jaw flexed. The supervisor moved between them. That's enough. He looked at Marcus. You're staying detained until we sort out the assault claim. Ruiz spoke. Lieutenant, his identity is confirmed. I heard you. He's also injured. I can see that. Marcus said, being FBI doesn't make me immune from arrest. The supervisor looked at him, surprised. Marcus continued. But neither does his uniform make the allegation true. The supervisor stared at him for a second, then turned to Mercer. Show me the injury. Mercer extended his left forearm. A faint red mark sat below the elbow. Ruiz stepped closer. That wasn't there when I arrived. Mercer looked at her. You weren't examining my arm. No. Her voice stayed controlled. But you rolled both sleeves up when you reached into the back seat. Mercer stared. Ruiz added, there wasn't a mark. The supervisor's face changed. Only Slight saw it. Mercer did too. That's your memory? Mercer asked. Ruiz looked at him. That's my observation. The supervisor raised a hand. Stop. He turned toward the Range Rover. What's in the case? Marcus answered. Secured service weapon. Mercer looked at him.
You said privileged material. My laptop bag contains privileged material.
The case contains my weapon. The supervisor looked at Mercer. Then why are you trying to open it? Inventory. It's not being inventoried on the highway. Mercer put the case down harder than necessary. The supervisor called for EMS. Mercer objected. The supervisor didn't look at him. He's bleeding. Marcus watched Mercer's face. The trooper was losing control of the sequence. That made him more dangerous, not less. The ambulance arrived at 8:46. A paramedic cleaned the cut on Marcus's neck and checked circulation in his hands. These cuffs need to come off, Mercer said. No. The paramedic looked at the supervisor. I didn't ask him. The supervisor nodded toward Ruiz. Switched them. Ruiz removed Mercer's cuffs and replaced them with another pair, loose enough to fit a finger underneath. Marcus flexed both hands. The feeling returned as sharp pins of pain. Ruiz lowered her voice. I'm sorry. Marcus looked at her. For what? She glanced toward Mercer. For not stopping this sooner. Marcus shook his head. Don't apologize yet, she frowned. Why? Because he's going to ask you to choose a version. Ruiz's face went still. Marcus nodded toward her camera. Choose the one that happened, Mercer shouted from the cruiser. Ruiz, she turned. He held Marcus's credential wallet. Get over here. She walked away. The paramedic taped gauze to Marcus's neck. You need stitches? No, probably not. The paramedic checked his pupils. Any glass in the eyes? No. Blurred vision? Not. The supervisor approached. You going to the hospital? Marcus shook his head.
I want the stop documented before anyone moves the vehicle.
Mercer laughed from behind him. Of course you do. Marcus ignored him. The supervisor said tow is already coming. Why? Vehicle will be held pending the investigation. What investigation? Assault. Marcus looked at him. And the Range Rover assaulted him? The supervisor's face tightened. You know what I mean? Yes. Marcus turned toward the SUV. Then seal it. Don't search beyond safety inventory without a warrant. Mercer walked up. We already have probable cause. For what? Federal impersonation, Ruiz said. His identity is confirmed. Mercer didn't look at her. Could still be using the badge outside his authority. Marcus almost laughed. That's not impersonation. You're carrying a firearm. I'm a federal agent. That'll be for the magistrate. Marcus looked at the supervisor. You're hearing this. The supervisor rubbed the bridge of his nose. Grant, stop talking. Mercer stopped. Marcus noticed that. It was the first direct order Mercer had obeyed all morning. The tow truck arrived at 9:02. It was not a state vehicle.
White cab, blue logo, Ridgeway Recovery. Marcus read the name twice.
Something moved behind his eyes. The driver walked up with a clipboard. Mercer stepped toward him immediately. Take it to the South Depot. The driver nodded. Marcus looked at the supervisor. Why that company? Contract tow rotation. Today's rotation? The supervisor frowned. What? Marcus pointed with cuffed hands. Is Ridgeway next on rotation? Mercer answered. Yes. Marcus looked at him. I asked the lieutenant. Mercer's mouth tightened. The supervisor pulled out his phone. He checked something. Then checked again. Ridgeway's approved. That wasn't my question. The supervisor looked up. Marcus continued. Is it next? A pause. Mercer turned. What? The supervisor looked at him. Jenkins Towing is next. Mercer shrugged. Ridgeway was closer. How'd you know? Mercer's answer came too fast. I know the area. Marcus looked at Ruiz. She was already watching Mercer. The tow driver shifted his weight. Want me to load it or not? The supervisor said, hold. Mercer walked toward him. Lieutenant, this is getting ridiculous. Why did you call Ridgeway? I didn't. The tow driver looked between them. Trooper Mercer called dispatch through us. Nobody spoke. Mercer turned toward him. The driver pointed at the clipboard. Your unit number's on the request. Marcus didn't move. Ruiz did. She took one step toward the truck. What time did that come in? The driver checked. 8:17. Marcus looked at Mercer. 8:17. Ruiz had not run Marcus's registration until after 8:30. Mercer's official story had changed 3 times before the first clean database return. But Ridgeway Recovery had been called almost immediately. The supervisor held out his hand. Let me see that. The driver gave him the sheet. Mercer stepped in. It doesn't matter. The supervisor looked at him. Why was a tow ordered before you had a stolen hit? Mercer's face hardened. I knew where this was going. Marcus spoke. That's the first honest thing you've said. Mercer spun toward him. The supervisor snapped Grant. Mercer stopped. Marcus looked at the Ridgeway logo again. He had seen it before, not on the highway, on a photograph. 3 weeks earlier, a faded blue sign behind the man Marcus was supposed to meet that morning. The confidential witness worked for a vehicle recovery contractor. Marcus had never asked which one in an unsecured message. He had deliberately kept it compartmentalized, but he remembered the photograph. Same Blue Mountain logo, Ridgeway Recovery. Marcus's voice changed. Don't that truck touch my vehicle. The supervisor frowned. Why? Marcus looked directly at him. Because Ridgeway Recovery is connected to an active federal matter. Mercer's eyes moved just once toward the driver. Marcus saw it. There, the second leak, supervisor said. Connected how? I'm not discussing a federal investigation on the shoulder. Mercer laughed. You conveniently remember that now? Marcus looked at him. I remembered it when I saw the logo. The supervisor turned toward the tow driver. You're dismissed. The driver looked confused. What about the call? Cancelled. Mercer stepped forward. You can't just... I can. The supervisor's voice sharpened. Go sit in your cruiser. Mercer stared at him. The supervisor repeated it now. For several seconds, Mercer didn't move. Then he walked away. Marcus watched the personal phone in Mercer's pocket. He had been worried about a message disappearing. Now he was worried about an entire company. At 9:18, another tow service arrived. This one took the Range Rover to a secured state impound facility. Before it left, Marcus watched Ruiz photograph every side of it. Broken window, glass inside, undamaged exterior. Mercer's cruiser.
Mercer's left forearm, the hard case, the center console.
She took each photograph with a department device. Not her personal phone. Marcus said nothing. The supervisor noticed. So now you approve? Marcus looked at him. Now there's a record. They transported Marcus to the regional state police office at 9:41. Not in Mercer's cruiser Ruiz drove. The supervisor sat in front. Marcus sat in the rear seat, cuffed in front. Mercer followed behind them. For the first 10 minutes, nobody spoke. Then Marcus said, Trooper Ruiz. She checked the mirror. Yes? What time did you activate your body camera? Before I got out, automatic upload? Yes. The supervisor looked back. Stop interviewing her, Marcus said. I asked one question. You're a detainee. And she answered voluntarily. The supervisor turned forward. Marcus looked at Ruiz in the mirror. Don't access the footage yourself. She frowned. Why? If Mercer knows you viewed it, he'll know which details you noticed. The supervisor turned again. That's enough. Marcus stopped. But Ruiz understood. At the regional office, they took Marcus through a side entrance. His badge went into an evidence locker. His service weapon remained sealed with the Range Rover. His phone was taken from the SUV and placed in a property bag. The laptop stayed sealed pending consultation with federal counsel. That part happened only because the supervisor finally called the bureau. At 10:11, an FBI duty attorney arrived by secure video. A second bureau official stayed off camera but could be heard in the room. Marcus sat at one end of a conference table. The supervisor sat at the other. Mercer stood by the door. Ruiz sat against the wall. The attorney said, Special Agent Ellis's identity and duty status are confirmed. Mercer folded his arms. Nobody's disputing that anymore. Marcus looked at him.
You were 30 minutes ago?
Mercer ignored him. The attorney continued. The Bureau is requesting immediate release of Agent Ellis and return of his credentials. The supervisor said, We have an allegation of assault on a trooper. Supported by what? Trooper statement video? Under review, injury, a reported forearm strike. The attorney paused. Medical documentation? Mercer said it happened. Marcus looked at Ruiz. She didn't look back. The attorney said, The Bureau is also requesting preservation of all records related to the stop. The supervisor nodded. We're doing that. Marcus spoke. Including Mercer's personal phone. Mercer pushed away from the wall. My personal phone has nothing to do with this. Marcus looked at the supervisor. It received a message identifying my vehicle before the official database query. The attorney's voice changed. What message? Marcus repeated it. Black Rover southbound, confirmed. The room went quiet. The attorney asked, Who sent it? I don't know. Mercer said because it didn't exist. Ruiz looked up. Marcus saw her deciding, then she spoke. I saw the screen. Mercer turned. What? Ruiz's voice stayed level. I didn't read the whole message at first. You already said that. I reviewed my memory. Mercer gave a disbelieving laugh. Your memory, Ruiz continued. I saw Black Rover. Mercer stared at her. The supervisor looked toward him. Ruiz added, and I heard Agent Ellis say the rest before you put the phone away. Mercer pointed at her. You're letting him feed you details. No, she looked directly at Mercer. I'm telling you I saw part of it. Mercer stepped closer. You better be very careful. The supervisor stood. Mercer stopped. The attorney on screen said, Lieutenant, that device needs to be isolated now. Mercer laughed. You don't have jurisdiction over my property. Marcus answered. No. He leaned forward. But if you delete something after being told it may be evidence, jurisdiction becomes the least interesting part. Mercer's face went red. The supervisor held out his hand. Phone, Mercer didn't move. Give me the phone, no? Everyone went still. The supervisor's voice dropped.
Grant, that's my personal property, so was his window.
Marcus watched Mercer. The trooper glanced toward the door. Ruiz stood. The supervisor extended his hand again. Phone. Mercer pulled it out. For 1 second, Marcus thought he might unlock it. Instead, Mercer held down the side buttons. Marcus recognized the motion. Don't power it off. Mercer looked at him. Why? Ruiz stepped forward. Grant, stop. Mercer's thumb moved. The screen went black. The supervisor cursed. Ruiz reached for the phone. Mercer pulled it back. She grabbed his wrist. The device slipped. It hit the floor. Mercer shoved her away hard. Ruiz struck the edge of a chair. The room exploded into movement. The supervisor grabbed Mercer's arm. Marcus stood automatically. A state investigator outside the door rushed in. Mercer twisted free. I didn't do anything. Ruiz pushed herself upright. Her body cam was still recording. Marcus looked at the phone on the floor. Screen cracked, still dark. The supervisor kicked it away from everyone. Nobody touch it. Mercer pointed at Ruiz. She grabbed me. Ruiz looked at him.
You were wiping the device. I was turning off my phone.
After being ordered to surrender it, Mercer looked at the supervisor. This is insane. The supervisor's face had gone cold.
No, he nodded toward Ruiz. That was insane. The immediate consequence came fast.
Mercer's duty weapon was removed, not as punishment. Administrative safety. His badge stayed on him, but a state investigator escorted him into another room. Ruiz refused medical treatment. The supervisor insisted on photographs of the bruise forming along her arm. Marcus sat back down. The FBI attorney stared through the screen.
Is anybody still considering my client the most urgent problem in this building?
Nobody answered. At 10:42, Mercer signed a sworn assault complaint anyway. Marcus learned about it when the supervisor returned with 2 papers. What are those? Criminal complaint. Marcus stared at him. You're moving forward. I'm required to submit the allegation. After what just happened? That's separate. Marcus laughed once. The supervisor did not. I'm not saying I believe him. You're booking me anyway. Pending magistrate review. The FBI attorney objected. The supervisor held up one hand.
I have a trooper willing to swear Agent Ellis struck him during extraction.
Marcus leaned back, and a second trooper whose body cam begins after the window was already broken.
Yes, so Mercer gets the advantage of the missing first minute.
For now, Marcus looked at Ruiz. She sat with an ice pack against her forearm. Her expression said more than the supervisor's. Marcus asked, "What charge?" "Assault on law enforcement and resisting." The attorney said Agent Ellis did not resist. Mercer's written statement said otherwise. The supervisors slid it across the table. Marcus read the first paragraph, then the second. The language was polished. Too polished. Marcus pointed at one line. Who helped him write this? The supervisor frowned. What? Marcus read aloud.
The driver accelerated the window upward against my forearm while reaching below the seat.
Ruiz looked over. Marcus continued. That isn't what he said on the road. The supervisor asked, What did he say? He said I struck his arm during extraction. Ruiz nodded. That's what I heard. Marcus tapped the statement. Now the injury happened before extraction. The supervisor took the paper. He read the line. His expression changed. Marcus pointed again. And according to this, the broken window happened because I raised it against him. Ruiz said the glass was already down halfway when I arrived. Marcus looked at her. And you saw which direction the remaining edge sat. She nodded. Down. The supervisor looked at both of them. Marcus continued. He needs the window to become the reason for the baton. Nobody spoke. Marcus tapped the page, but on the shoulder the reason was that I wouldn't unlock the door. The supervisor put the statement down. Marcus's voice stayed quiet. His story isn't getting clearer. He looked toward the room where Mercer had been taken. It's getting engineered. At 11:03, the magistrate declined to release Marcus immediately. Not because the evidence was strong, because a sworn officer had alleged a felony assault, and the magistrate wanted a formal hearing that afternoon. The Bureau placed Marcus on administrative restriction. His credentials remained verified, his gun remained secured. His access to the confidential investigation was suspended until FBI counsel could separate his personal case from the matter he had been working. That was the consequence Mercer's accusation brought him. Marcus sat in a small interview room with no cuffs now, but the door remained locked. At 11:26, the FBI attorney returned with a message from Marcus's office. The source never showed. Marcus looked up. What? The person you were meeting. Did anyone contact him? He sent one voicemail at 9:16. Marcus sat forward. What did he say? The attorney played it. A man's voice came through the speaker.
Low, breathing hard, I'm not coming in, a pause.
They knew. Another pause. I don't know how, but somebody knew I was meeting you. Marcus's face changed. The voicemail continued. A Ridgeway truck pulled into the employee lot before 8:30. One of the guys asked if the federal man had made it yet. The recording ended. Marcus stared at the phone. The attorney said, There's more. Play it. He sent a photograph. The attorney turned the screen. A phone photograph filled it. Blurry. Taken inside an office. A computer monitor showed a private messaging window. The group name read, South Corridor Recovery. Marcus leaned closer. The messages were short. Plate numbers, vehicle colors. Highway exits, Tau destinations. Most meant nothing to him.
Then he saw one timestamp, 7:54 a.m. Black Rover.
Bay plate, 7K 4412, southbound. Marcus knew the plate. A second line appeared beneath it, visitor for C. Watch and confirm, no FBI reference, no name, just enough to identify his Range Rover. The attorney scrolled lower. 858M, a reply from a contact labeled G. Eyes on.
Marcus's jaw tightened. Grant Mercer, sir, the attorney said. The source says G.
M is one of 6 state troopers in the group. Marcus looked at the image. This is why he called Ridgway. Yes, he never needed a stolen vehicle hit.
No, Marcus leaned back. The pieces locked together.
Mercer had not randomly stopped an expensive Range Rover and then panicked when he saw an FBI badge. He had been waiting for that Range Rover. Someone at Ridgway knew a visitor was heading toward the whistleblower. They had sent the plate into a private recovery group.
Mercer had found the SUV, then built a reason afterward.
The attorney continued. The source claims Ridgway employees use this chat to feed vehicles to troopers they trust. For legitimate theft recoveries, sometimes. And the rest? The attorney looked at him. He says high-value cars get flagged as verification stops. If police find anything usable, Ridgway gets the tow. If they don't, the stop still creates data the company uses to justify its state contract. Marcus thought about Mercer calling Ridgway at 8:17. Before the clean official query. Before the badge. Before the invented assault. Money? Source says cash bonuses, overtime referrals, preferred off-duty security work. Marcus looked at the photograph again. And race? The attorney paused. No race field in the chat. Marcus waited. But the source says members regularly use neighborhood, vehicle value, driver photos, and coded descriptions. Marcus looked back at the words Black Rover. It could mean vehicle color. It probably did, but the system around it no longer felt neutral. What was the source going to give me today? Payment records.
Marcus's expression hardened, and now he's gone.
Gone where? Unknown. The attorney lowered the phone. He left work. His personal cell is off. Marcus stood. The attorney said, "You can't contact him, I know." "You're still restricted, I know. Then what are you doing?" Marcus looked toward the locked door. "Getting Ruiz." The attorney frowned. "Why?" "Because her camera is the only clean record from the shoulder we know hasn't passed through Mercer."
At 11:51, Ruiz entered. The bruise on her arm had darkened.
Marcus looked at it.
I'm fine. No, you're not."
She almost smiled. Occupational hazard. Marcus shook his head. "No," Ruiz looked at him. "You were right." "About what?" "He asked me to choose a version." Marcus said nothing. She sat. "Before we left the highway, he told me to write that you were reaching continuously." "Were my hands moving continuously?" "No." "Did you write it?" "No." "Good." Ruiz looked toward the camera in the interview room.
Internal Affairs locked my footage. Marcus's eyebrows rose.
"When, after Mercer shoved me, can you access it?"
"No, can he not supposed to?"
Marcus leaned forward. "Not supposed to isn't the same as can't," she nodded. "I know," Marcus told her about the Ridgway message. Not the entire federal case, only what his attorney had authorized. Her face changed when he reached the timestamp. 7:54?
Yes. My dispatch record has Mercer marking on duty at 7:30.
Where? South Sector. Marcus nodded. "He didn't find me." Ruiz understood. "He was sent to you." "Yes." She sat back. "And he had no official reason. Not before the stop." Ruiz rubbed her forehead. "This is bigger than a bad traffic stop." Marcus looked at her. "That's twist one." Ruiz blinked. "What?" Marcus almost smiled despite himself. "Nothing." She stared at him. "You FBI people are weird. That's fair." The door opened. The supervisor stepped in. His face looked worse than it had on the highway. "Agent Ellis," Marcus stood. "What?" "We recovered the phone." "Powered?" "Yes." "Message intact?" The supervisor hesitated. "That's not the problem." Marcus's expression changed. "What is?" The supervisor placed a printed screenshot on the table. Mercer's phone had automatically backed up recent notifications to a linked dashboard inside his cruiser. One message from 7:54 remained visible. Black Rover.
Vplate 7K4412 southbound, another at 8 Fower. G.
Visual confirm. Mercer had answered yes. Marcus looked at the supervisor. "That's enough to show the stop wasn't random." "Yes." "But not why." "No." The supervisor put down a second page. Marcus read it. His face hardened. At 8:09, less than 2 minutes after Marcus stopped on the shoulder, Mercer had sent another message to the group. Got him a response came back 30 seconds later.
"Hold him Ridgway en route."
Ruiz whispered, "Jesus." Marcus kept reading. Then he reached the last line.
8:13. From a different account, don't let him reach C.
Marcus stopped. The confidential source. The man he had been driving to meet. Ruiz looked at him. "What does C mean?" Marcus didn't answer. The supervisor did not ask again. He had enough experience to know when a silence was classified. Marcus looked toward the locked door. The problem had changed. This was no longer just about proving Mercer lied. Someone in that private group knew Marcus was heading toward the whistleblower. Maybe not that Marcus was FBI, but they knew the meeting mattered enough to stop. And Mercer had done exactly that. The supervisor's phone rang. He answered, listened. His face changed. What? Another pause. Marcus stood. The supervisor looked at him. Ridgeway Recovery just reported a break-in at their South Depot. Marcus's stomach tightened. What was taken? The supervisor listened again. Then lowered the phone. One office computer. Marcus already knew what would have been on it.
The chat, the payment records, the visitor logs. Maybe the only files connecting.
Mercer's stopped to the larger operation. Ruiz stood. Security video? The supervisor shook his head. System was disabled 11 minutes before the break-in. Marcus looked at the screenshot again. Don't let him reach C. Mercer had not just stumbled into a corrupt system. He had been part of its response, and now somebody was cleaning up behind him. By 2:10 that afternoon, state police had already built a new version of the stop. It did not say Mercer had targeted Marcus. It said Mercer had acted on a third-party vehicle intelligence tip that he reasonably believed involved stolen property. The private messages were suddenly described as an informal information-sharing channel used by troopers and recovery contractors. Ridgeway Recovery was called a cooperating vendor. And the line, "Don't let him reach C," was explained as a warning that Marcus might be heading toward a suspected vehicle theft contact. Marcus read the statement in the magistrate holding room and looked at his attorney. They're making the conspiracy sound like policy. That's what institutions do when the first explanation stops working. What about Mercer? Administrative leave? That's not an answer. It's the answer they're giving today. The assault charge remained active. So did Marcus's restriction from field duty. His badge had been verified hours earlier, but that had not restored his authority. Now the state's argument was simpler. Maybe Mercer had been wrong about who Marcus was. Maybe the force had been excessive. But if Mercer had received a real tip about a suspected theft network, the stop itself might still have been lawful. That was enough to keep the case alive. At 2:43, the state investigator brought Marcus into a recorded conference room. Mercer was already there. No uniform hat now, no sunglasses. His duty weapon had been removed, but he still wore the grey state police shirt. Ruiz sat against the far wall with her bruised forearm resting on the chair arm. The lieutenant stood near the door. Marcus's attorney sat beside him. Mercer looked at Marcus for the first time since the phone incident. You happy? Marcus sat down. No, you got what you wanted. What did I want? My badge on the table. Mercer leaned back. Congratulations. Marcus studied him. The anger was still there, but something else had replaced the arrogance from the highway. Fear not of Marcus, of the messages. The investigator placed 3 printed screenshots on the table.
Trooper Mercer, you told us the group chat was used to share vehicle theft information.
It was. Was every vehicle posted there stolen?
No, was Marcus Ellis's Range Rover reported stolen?
Mercer looked at Marcus. No. Then why did you stop? Because Ridgeway had flagged it as connected to a theft contact. Marcus spoke. You didn't know who was driving. Mercer's eyes moved back to him. No, you didn't know I was FBI. No, you didn't have a stolen hit.
No, you didn't have a warrant, no.
Marcus leaned forward. Then what exactly were you confirming? Mercer smiled without humor. You think because you've got a badge I have to pretend the road is simple? Marcus said nothing. Mercer continued. Ridgeway recovered stolen cars for years. They knew chop shops. They knew fake lean crews. They knew which lots were moving cloned VINs before our database caught up. The investigator asked, so you trusted them? Yes. Enough to stop a car based on a message? Enough to look at it. Marcus glanced at the photo of his shattered window. You didn't look at it. Mercer's jaw tightened. You locked the door. You gave contradictory commands. You challenged everything. I asked why I was stopped. You acted like you knew better. Marcus held his eyes. I did know better. That landed. Mercer leaned forward. And that right there is the part nobody wants to talk about. The room stayed quiet. You think I woke up planning to smash an FBI agent's window? No. I saw an expensive vehicle tied to a recovery contact. Driver wouldn't answer where he was going. Driver kept talking like every question needed a legal brief. Then he started reaching. Ruiz spoke from the wall. His hands were visible when I arrived. Mercer turned. You weren't there at the start, no. You don't know what I saw. Ruiz looked at him. I know what you changed afterward. Mercer's face hardened. The investigator raised a hand. Marcus didn't. Why did Ridgway know where I was going? Mercer looked back at him. I don't know. Why did somebody tell you not to let me reach C? I don't know who C is. Marcus watched him. That answer was too fast. You called Ridgway at 8:17? I requested a tow. Before the official plate check. I told you, I believed the tip. You also told dispatch you stopped me because I crossed the fog line. Mercer looked away. Marcus continued. Then you said I reached under the seat. No response. Then you said I assaulted you. Mercer's hand closed on the edge of the table. Marcus lowered his voice. When did the stop become about C? Mercer looked at him again. It didn't. Marcus's attorney slid a page across the table. The Ridgway call sheet. 8:17 a.m. The investigator placed beside it the group message. 8:13 a.m. Don't let him reach C, then the dispatch log.
No stolen hit, no plate alert, no wanted vehicle.
Marcus said. 4 minutes. Mercer's eyes dropped to the papers.
4 minutes after that message, you called the company connected to the person I was driving to meet.
Mercer said nothing. Marcus leaned closer.
You didn't know I was federal when you broke the glass.
That made Mercer look up, Marcus continued. But once you saw the badge, you understood exactly why someone wanted me delayed. Ruiz stopped moving. The lieutenant's eyes narrowed. Mercer's face changed. Not enough for a confession. Enough for Marcus. That's why the reason changed again, Marcus said.
No, you didn't invent assault because you thought the badge was fake. No, you invented assault because if I walked away, I reached C.
Mercer stood. That's garbage. The investigator ordered him to sit. Mercer ignored him. You think everything revolves around your investigation? Marcus stood too. His attorney touched his arm. He didn't sit. No. Marcus looked directly at Mercer. I think the badge scared you for a different reason than I thought. Mercer froze. Marcus continued.
On the highway, I thought you were scared because you'd assaulted an FBI agent.
His voice dropped.
You were scared because you realized the stranger you were told to delay was the federal agent C had been waiting for.
That was the deeper truth. The stop had not begun as racial profiling wrapped around a random traffic encounter. It had begun as an off-book interception built from a private contractor's tip. Mercer had made the racial assumption after contact. He had made the violent choice himself. But the reason Marcus's Range Rover had been singled out before Mercer ever saw his face was that someone inside Ridgway knew a visitor was coming to meet the whistleblower. The badge did not create the danger. It exposed what Mercer had already stepped into. Mercer sat slowly. His voice changed. You don't know what C told them. Marcus waited. The investigator leaned forward. Who is C? Mercer rubbed both hands over his face. Then he looked at Marcus. He was stealing records. Marcus didn't react. From Ridgway? Yes, records of what? Mercer looked toward the investigator. I want counsel. That ended the interview. It did not end Marcus's problem. At 4:05, the magistrate refused to dismiss the assault charge. Mercer had invoked counsel. The private messages showed coordination, but not yet the exact purpose of the coordination. C was gone. The stolen office computer was still missing. And the state argued that the messages could support Mercer's claim that he was responding to suspected criminal activity. Marcus was released on his own recognizance, but the assault charge stayed. His bureau restriction stayed too. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited behind the barricades. One reporter shouted, "Agent Ellis, did you use your FBI status to interfere with a state investigation?" Another called, "Was the Range Rover connected to a theft ring?" Marcus stopped under the courthouse awning. For a second, he wanted to answer every question. Explain the message. Explain Ridgway. Explain why Mercer's story had changed. His attorney touched his elbow. Don't. Marcus looked at the cameras. Then at the gauze still taped to his neck. He walked away. That evening, Ruiz came to Marcus's attorney's office. No uniform, no badge visible. She carried a brown paper envelope. Marcus looked at it. What's that? My resignation letter. He stared at her. You resigned? Not yet. She put it on the table. Marcus sat back. Ruiz looked exhausted. Internal Affairs asked whether you coached me on the shoulder.
I asked you to preserve your video, I know. They asked whether I was angry at Mercer before the stop.
Well, you know.
They asked whether I had career issues with him.
Marcus waited. Ruiz gave a short laugh. He recommended me for detective training last month. That surprised him. So telling the truth costs you something.
Yes. Marcus looked at the envelope. You came here to ask whether you should quit?
No, then why bring it? Ruiz stared at the paper. Because I almost signed it. Marcus said nothing. She continued.
When he told me one scene needs one story, I knew exactly what he meant.
Her fingers pressed into the envelope, and for maybe 2 seconds I thought about doing it. Marcus held her gaze. I thought about writing continuous reaching. I thought about saying I couldn't remember the order. I thought about letting the footage speak, so I wouldn't have to. What stopped you? Ruiz looked at him. You? Marcus frowned. Not your badge. She shook her head. When he broke the window, I wasn't there. When he put you in cuffs, I wasn't there. I could have told myself I didn't know enough. Her voice dropped. Then he grabbed my wrist. Marcus looked at the bruise on her arm. And I realized how fast a person can become part of somebody else's report. Marcus leaned back. Ruiz slid the resignation letter toward him. What would you do? Marcus looked at it for a long moment. Then pushed it back. I'd testify. She blinked. That's not what I asked. It's the answer I have. What if they bury me? They might. What if I never make detective? Marcus looked at her. Then at least you'll know which story you chose. Ruiz stared at him. Then she tore the resignation letter in half. Not dramatically, just once. Down the middle. That's a terrible motivational speech.
Marcus almost smiled. I'm on restricted duty. Lower your expectations.
For the first time since the highway, Ruiz laughed. The next break came at 7:32 that night. C contacted Marcus's attorney through the same secure number he had used before disappearing. He would not come to the office. He would not speak to state police. But he agreed to meet federal investigators at a neutral location if Marcus stayed away. That condition hurt more than Marcus expected. The attorney told him why. He thinks your stop proves somebody was watching him. They were.
He also thinks your presence would expose the meeting again.
Marcus nodded. He's right. The next morning, C turned over what he had planned to bring before Mercer stopped the Range Rover. Not one dramatic ledger, a set of ordinary records. 2 invoices, cash app reimbursements, off-duty security rosters. Internal Ridgeway emails, and a spreadsheet tracking priority recoveries. The pattern was simple once investigators aligned it. Ridgeway employees flagged high-value vehicles linked to people they considered unlikely to challenge a stop quickly. Troopers in the private chat initiated verification contacts. If they found a legitimate violation, Ridgeway received the tow. If no violation existed, some officers recorded vague safety concerns, owner discrepancies, or suspected documentation issues. Most drivers eventually got their vehicles back, but they paid towing, storage, and administrative fees. Ridgeway made money. Selected troopers received off-duty shifts, referral bonuses disguised as training pay or free vehicle services. Mercer appeared 7 times, not the most, enough. But Marcus's stop was different. His Range Rover had not been flagged for profit. It had been flagged to prevent a meeting. C had discovered the payment pattern while reconciling tow accounts. A Ridgeway manager saw that he had copied records. The manager did not know Marcus was FBI. He only knew C had arranged to meet an outside investigator that morning. So the group got Marcus's plate from the visitor information C had sent to a co-worker for parking access. Mercer was told to identify the driver and delay him. The plan was never supposed to involve a broken window. It was supposed to be a stop. Questions, maybe a tow. Enough time for Ridgeway to find out what C had copied. Mercer made the rest personal. That distinction mattered. It meant the network explained why Marcus was targeted. It did not excuse what Mercer chose to do once he saw a black man behind the wheel. The federal and state investigations separated those questions. Within 3 days, the assault charge against Marcus was dismissed. The prosecutor's filing was short. Mercer's changing accounts, the clean vehicle record, Ruiz's body cam, the message timestamps, and the lack of any contemporaneous injury evidence made the charge impossible to defend. Marcus did not get his badge back that day. The Bureau completed its own review first. 2 weeks later, his credentials were restored. Mercer remained suspended. The state charged him months later with filing a false report, evidence tampering related to his phone, and obstruction tied to the effort to delay Marcus from reaching C. The window strike was reviewed separately under use of force policy and became part of a civil case. Ridgway lost its state tow contract. The company's owners faced fraud and bribery charges after investigators traced payments to multiple troopers. The lieutenant who had arrived at the roadside was cleared of involvement in the private group, but disciplined for allowing the detention to continue after Marcus's identity was confirmed without forcing Mercer to reconcile the changing basis for arrest. Ruiz stayed with state police. She did not make detective that year. She did the next. Marcus returned to field duty with a thin scar near his neck and a new rule for source meetings. No witness got one point of contact anymore. Every sensitive source had 2 protected channels and a backup agent who could step in if the first disappeared. 3 months after the stop, Ruiz met Marcus at a courthouse cafeteria after testifying before the state oversight panel. She placed a coffee in front of him. Peace offering. For what? Your motivational speech still bothers me. Marcus took the cup. Good. She sat across from him.
You know what Mercer said during his disciplinary hearing?
Marcus shook his head. He said he was trying to stop a suspicious vehicle tied to a bad source. Marcus waited. Ruiz continued. He said race had nothing to do with it. Marcus looked down at the coffee. Maybe not with the plate. Ruiz nodded. But with what happened after he saw you? Marcus looked at her. That's the part records can't quantify cleanly. She was quiet, Marcus continued. He had a reason to find the Range Rover. He touched the scar near his neck. He still chose what kind of man he thought was inside it. Ruiz looked toward the cafeteria window. And the badge? Marcus smiled once. The badge didn't save me, no. It made him realize he'd picked the worst possible person to lie about. Ruiz lifted her coffee. That sounds better. It's...
Why? Marcus looked at her. Because the rights he violated were mine before he knew what job I had.
Ruiz nodded. That was the part Marcus carried forward. The badge changed Mercer's strategy. The records changed the case. C's evidence exposed the network. Ruiz's camera preserved the moment the story split in 2. But none of those things created Marcus's right to be treated lawfully. They only made it harder to erase what happened when he wasn't. The morning Mercer shattered the Range Rover window, he thought he was stopping one unknown man from reaching one nervous source. Instead, he exposed the private system that had been feeding him targets, money, and excuses. And the moment he saw the FBI badge, he had one last chance to stop digging. He chose the lie. That was the mistake he could not take back.